How does the courageous, loyal leader, the absolute heart of the group from Stranger Things seasons 1 and 2, the protector of Will, suddenly become, well, in the eyes of the global fandom, aloof, defensive, and frankly a bit of a joke, right? And it's the central psychological puzzle of the entire series, isn't it? It really is. And now, in season 5, he's supposedly back to being a leader, Mike. What does that apparent change to form actually mean for his character? For a long time, viewers felt Mike Wheeler's transformation was almost an act of narrative malpractice. I can see that. I mean, this is the kid who was so empathetic, so committed. He literally stayed by Will's side when he was possessed. And then suddenly, he's a distant boyfriend to, maybe more importantly, a terrible friend to Will. Exactly. Ignoring Will's pain, lashing out. It felt like a total betrayal of the character. Okay, let's unpack this, because if we accept that the Duffling brothers are generally excellent writers, we have to assume the show wasn't a mistake. It can't be. You know, if you just look at it as teen drama, you might just write it off as, oh, it's predictable teen anger. Well, but that doesn't really account for the severity of his change or the emotional damage it caused, you know? No. So we have to look for a theory that elevates his arc beyond that cliché. And the most powerful explanation ties his negative behavior directly back to that intense loyalty he showed Will in season 1. Oh, that's interesting. The theory is that Mike has been grappling with intense compulsory heterosexuality and internalized homophobia. Okay, hold on. And that it all stems from his burgeoning, maybe unrecognized feelings for Will. Right. For those of us who don't spend our days analyzing psychological theory, can you sort of simplify those terms for us? How do they apply to a kid in Hawkins, Indiana in the 80s? Absolutely, and they're the foundation of this whole theory, so they need to be clear. Compulsory heterosexuality is basically the societal expectation that being straight is the default, it's the only normal, so he's just trying to fit the mold to what everyone expects. Precisely. Mike is raised in 1980s suburban America. He's supposed to date ill and fit into that classic male-female pairing. So he's trying to force himself into a role that feels natural to the world around him, but maybe not to his internal experience. And that leads directly to the second part, internalized homophobia. Okay, when Mike's feelings for Will challenge that societal expectation, he doesn't hate other people, he hates those feelings himself. He sees them as a thorn to his identity, to his normalcy, and that self-hatred, that fear, that's what gets projected outward as being a jerk. I see the link you're making now. The negative, aggressive behavior in season 3 and 4 isn't random at all. It's a defense mechanism against his own identity. It's him trying desperately to push away feelings he's terrified of. And we see the pattern consistently when Mike and Ilyn broken up, when the pressure to perform is lifted. He laughs back. He briefly slips back to those initial loyal protective qualities we learned in season 1. The moment he steps away from that role society demands, he can breathe again and act like himself. Which makes the return of Leader Mike in season 5 not a simple fact, but a huge narrative hurdle. A huge one. If he just magically woke up one day and decided to be nice again, that's terrible writing. It means they invested 2 seasons in a destructive personality change just to throw it away. It would be insulting to the complexity they gave other characters, like Will, who have this long, complex journey of self-acceptance. For Mike's arc to be satisfying, there has to be a profound, well-thought-out internal journey that explains the jerk phase. A character doesn't just act homophobic toward his best friend and then decide to be nice again. There has to be a reason. No, absolutely not. The writers establish in the very beginning that he was a deeply loyal friend, so the shift has to be rooted in something he's fighting within himself. So, to really get why that conflict manifested as a toxic denial, we have to look past the internalized homophobia and focus on the deeper engine, his profound fear of change. And this is where the analysis gets really insightful, because this fear isn't new. It's kind of the core of Mike's personality. We see it pretty early on, don't we? As far back as season 2, with his annoyance and insecurity over Max joining the party. He was so territorial, because he likes things simple, stable, and under his absolute control. Max was an interruption to the closed-off dynamic of the original 4 boys. And season 4, that fear evolved. He explicitly drew away from Elle because he was worried she wouldn't need him anymore. He admits it.
He says he's scared things can't stay simple forever, and he's terrified of losing control over the people he loves as they grow up. The status quo is his comfort blanket, and who is the ultimate symbol of painful, unavoidable change in the goo? It's Will. It's Will. His entire life is defined by trauma, possession, and eventually the painful process of figuring out his identity. So Mike projects his own fear of losing control onto Will, because Will's reality is changing so drastically, and that forces Mike to face his own volatile emotions. This tension between denial and change it's laid bare in that hospital scene with Nancy after the attack on their house. Oh, that scene is a key piece of evidence. Their reactions are just night and day. Nancy is racked with guilt. She acknowledges their denial, admits they chose to live in opinions of the danger because they didn't want to deal with it. She's ready to face the music. But Mike's reaction is pure deflection. He asks so defensively, "How could we have known?" For Nancy, the attack forces acceptance. For Mike, it's a catastrophic change, interrupting the stability he craves. He denies responsibility because taking it means accepting he's not in control and that his denial ultimately risked. And then, the writers gave us what feels like the least subtle, but maybe the most powerful piece of symbology to nail this point home. You're talking about the closet. During that chaotic attack on his home, Mike's closet is literally destroyed. It's just obliterated. It's a literal destruction of his hiding place, his metaphorical shelter. It's the writers using physical chaos to say, "My place of denial is gone. You've been exposed. You have to face the truth now." He can no longer retreat into that simple, stable denial. Okay, so if the destruction of the closet marks the end of his surface-level just denial, what is the next hurdle he faces in Season 5? Well, he enters the new, more sophisticated form of denial. How so? He has perhaps, maybe internally acknowledged his feelings about himself, but now his lifelong fear of change manifests this deep denial that Will could possibly reciprocate. So he thinks it's a one-way street. After years of society telling him these feelings are wrong, he just cannot fathom that Will would love him back. The fear of rejection becomes everything. He feels like he just recovered his friendship with Will, and he cannot risk jeopardizing that cherished status quo. Exactly. He thinks, I'll just acknowledge these feelings internally. I'll keep this inside, and we can maintain the peace. Which is just another form of denial, a desperate claim to control. But the narrative is screaming that this isn't going to work because the writers are setting up a classic romance, not a rejection story. That's a crucial distinction. It really is. If Will was just supposed to end in rejection, writers usually resolve that kind of thing quickly. They don't keep building it up with only 4 episodes left in the entire series. No, that would be a huge disservice to the audience's emotional investment. The slow burn requires a massive payoff. And we've already spent so much time exploring Will's side of things, right? His journey towards self-acceptance. We've seen the hope planted in him that Mike might reciprocate. Now the story demands Mike's perspective. So you think we'll get inside his head? Many theorists anticipate a crucial Mike POV episode in Volume 2, where his internal world, his hopes, his fears, his denial will finally be revealed to us. We even see that struggle against control reflected in the trailer lines, right? Elle tells Mike that unlike one of his campaigns, that he doesn't get to write the ending. Yes, it reinforces the core theme. Mike can't strategize his way out of this emotional reality. He has to face it. He has to let go of control. And that's what makes the slow burn so engaging for an audience. The writers purposefully show us, the viewers, how 2 characters feel, while the characters themselves are still in denial or too afraid to act. Yes. And that's the hook. We love the feeling that we know something that the characters don't. That shared secret makes the eventual payoff so satisfying. So the theory is that Mike's internal feelings will be revealed to the audience very early in the final episodes. There's some speculation it could tie into an episode titled Shock Jock, which is episode 5, suggesting a sudden, jarring reaction, the one that we, the audience, know Mike's feelings are real. We just have to wait for the catalyst, the event that finally forces them to talk. And there are a few compelling theories for that emotional bomb. The most dangerous is a highly isolated Mike and Will team mission. Maybe an episode Escape from Camelon.
Maybe being alone together facing life or death forces honesty. Then you have what you could call the Murray pattern, where an outsider just calls him whatever, and maybe even Lucas, someone who sees the tension and just forces it into the discussion. Yeah, the most dramatic catalyst. Victor himself, we know he exploits deep-seated fears. What if he traps him and forces him to confront the truth that his denial has goodwill? And we absolutely cannot forget the painting. Well, the painting. It's the ultimate narrative promise. It's a Chekhov gun. It has to be fired. It must be acknowledged before the series ends. It has to. And if the writers want to give us time to see the resolved relationship, the emotional breakthrough in days to come before the final battle, And the episode titles seem to hint at that. The episode titles for the concluding episodes offer massive hope. Episode 7, The Bridge, perfectly suggests building a connection, crossing a barrier, sharing a truth. And Episode 8, The Right Side Up, implies that after years of living in the upside down of denial and fear, things are finally coming right again. So, if we look at the whole picture, Mike's maze was never lazy writing. No, it was the internal chaos caused by his collision with societal expectation and his innate fear of losing the past. His return to life for Mike isn't the finish line. It's just the preparation for his greatest internal victory. But what does this all mean for you, the listener? Mike's journey shows that overcoming denial isn't about returning to who you were. It's about building a stronger identity that accepts change. He had to overcome that deeply rooted fear, and that battle explains every single out-of-character moment. And the final provocation is this. Mike's entire period of denial stemmed from fearing loss and change, specifically the loss of his simple platonic sonship with Will. But the writing suggests that confronting those fears by finally being honest about his feelings is the only way to genuinely save the most important relationship in his life. He has to exchange control for genuine connection.
If you enjoy this video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the bell to the later update from my channel. Thank you for watching till the end and see you in the next video.